Alright, so we're going to go through the installation of a thermostat on a Supercharged Sport. This is an 06 to 09. This particular vehicle is an 06. One of the reasons why we're changing the thermostat is that they actually threw an engine code and turned the check engine light on. Description of the code is that the thermostat or coolant has not come up to full temperature, and 99 out of 100 times it's because either the O-ring itself has slipped off the outside edge of the thermostat or the thermostat itself has just failed. So we're going to go through the procedure on replacing the thermostat. These aren't all that bad. They are installed definitely right up on top of the engine. Access is gained. We're going to take the this upper plastic plenum, intake plenum off. Once you loosen up the clamps, you got a breather hose right here. You're going to squeeze the sides. They're serrated edges there, so you know you squeeze those, and it's gonna be tight. That'll slip off and lift. There we go. Now you see you got an upper or an inner rubber boot that runs inside that. Don't forget to reinstall that when you put it back together. 9 out of 10 times it generally sticks to this. So what you have right here is your thermostat housing. There's only 3 bolts holding it in place. Unfortunately, the Sports and a lot of the newer Land Rovers, they do not have drain plugs on the bottom of the radiator. So you could reduce some of the loss by unplugging this lower hose, in which case it'll drain everything above it, which would be the thermostat area. I use a hose clamp tool. This is a great little clamping tool. And you'll follow this one hose as actually your feed hose right off the bottom of the main tank. So we're just going to slide that down in there. And we clamp that good and tight. And we have a catch pan. Always make sure you have a catch pan. Make sure it's cleaned out. You can, if it's clean enough, you can probably save a lot of your older coolant that you're going to lose as it splashes out the bottom. But in most cases, you're better off using a fresh coolant. And then you can always bottle up the stuff that you drained out of the system. You take it to any of your automotive centers for recycling. So we're going to slide this underneath. And then we have a 1/4 inch drive. I've got a swivel 8mm on the end. You can use a 5/16. Doesn't necessarily have to be a swivel. I just find it's easier in most cases, especially getting to the bottom bolt on the thermostat. So we'll take the 3 bolts out and we'll remove the housing. Now, you can do this one of 2 ways. This is one of these, I call it a build-it-yourself thermostat. This is not just a drop-in thermostat like you see on most V8 engines. There's a bottom collar here that locks in under 2 tabs that are actually part of the thermostat housing. But you can see that there's our fault right there. The O-ring is slipped right off of the thermostat. Is no longer sealing, so it's as if the thermostat is wide open all the time. Now, just to go back to showing you the pieces that you'll have to construct this, you have the inner spring, the lower spring, and then the thermostat unit itself. This is the, now you can see they've actually improved this design by making this all one piece instead of just an outer O-ring. So to remove it, and if you get, you can use a pair of pliers, or you can do it with finger strength. This bottom spring is definitely collapsible. You need to push down. You can see these 2 ears. They drop underneath 2 pieces of the thermostat housing that hold it in place. So you can actually push it and turn it about 20 degrees and that'll release. And they do get stuck in there pretty good. Alright. Yeah, and so you'll notice, and this is good that it's happened during the video, you'll notice the pin from the O-ring is actually stuck in place. And that's another problem because that's going to keep the thermostat from sliding back and forth properly. So grab a pair of heavy duty pliers and we'll spin this back and forth and work it out of the hole. And we're going to test fit the new one just to see that if it does slide in and out of there properly. Alright, we should be okay. I think that'll work good. Alright, so we've got your seal itself. Make sure that pin is in the right location. Make sure it moves free. You're going to take your inner spring, fat end down, and insert that into the retainer collar. Your lower spring gets mounted directly on that. Now the fun part is trying to compress this and turn it. All right, you can get the edges. Once you get the edges of that lower collar lined up with the tabs and get it to be able to hold in place, then you can just work it on both sides with a pair of needle nose pliers and squeeze it in until it pops in and it's centered, like so. Alright, and we'll double check, make sure that that piece still rides free. And don't forget, we're going to change the O-ring around the outside of this. A small pocket screwdriver or pick should be enough to get in there, and just lift that right out of there. Always replace this O-ring. The O-ring has these small little nubs on it, and the nubs are basically there to hold it in place. So you want to make sure that they're fully seated all the way around before you install it. So, we're just going to get this lined back up. It's usually easiest, put the two top bolts in first, because then it'll be a lot easier to get that lower hole lined up and that bolt started. That 8mm swivel socket makes this a lot easier, especially to get to that bottom bolt. And once you seat the bolts, snug them in. Now when you put the upper plenum back on, it's much easier to put the O-ring back inside first. There we go. And make sure that's fully seated and all the way in. And put your accordion boot on. The hose will just seat down and then just push into you. Hear that click? Now you know it's locked in positive. Tighten your two clamps, and then you'll just put your engine cover back on. Don't forget to remove your hose clamp that you've installed earlier. What you've done by doing that is you've saved a lot of the fluid that was already in the reservoir from draining through. That's that much less you'll need to top the system off. Alright, so then we're just going to top off the coolant to the upper line and we'll be done. Alright, so it's just something to note is you're going to have some of the coolant drained out of the cooling system. Now's a good time. Check the hoses, see if you have any wear, see if the hoses feel soft and very pliable or mushy. If you have over 100,000 miles and you haven't changed the hoses yet, probably would be a good time to do that. We do have a video that shows an overview of that hose kit. I would also mention that if in case the thermostat failure caused a check engine light, you'll need to clear that code out of the system as well once you're done to turn off that check engine light. So when you're ready to change over the thermostat on your Sport Supercharged, just call any of our knowledgeable salesmen at 1-800-533-2210. Thanks for watching.